Hey guys, what's up? My name's Glockshna, and I have a semi-advanced tutorial here for automating a little bit of Applied Energistics using compact machines and Ender.io. So this is a pretty neat little device that I've made here. It's one block, obviously, because it's a compact machine that when I give it the materials for some of the world crafting, or not world crafting, some of the crafting for Applied Energistics, it outputs the things. So let's give it some silicone, some gold, some diamonds, some pure Certus quartz, and some redstone. And we'll give it some Certus quartz crystals as well. And after waiting a little bit, you'll see we start to get some output here. It's a one block wonder. You just give it those materials and out pops calculation processors, logic processors, engineering processors, and some charged Certus crystals. And it's actually not as complicated to make as you might think. It's a little bit tedious, but once you've made it a few times, it's actually quite simple. So let's get into it. So I'm going to start off by placing just a golden compact machine. And I have another star so that I can pick this up, because this is a lot of work and you don't really want to put it inside a compact machine and then not be able to move it afterwards. So you will want to apply the nether star to it. And then I'm also just going to connect some energy on the bottom slot. And then I also will want to use a chest here, if I can find one. Here we go. For my input and output. And then we'll set this up later. There's some more things we need to do with this. But beyond that, let's enter our machine block. So inside of our machine block, we have a, looks like a 7x7 space to work with. What I normally do when I first enter a new compact machine is set up a floor and some basic wiring. So what I'm using here are facades from Ender.io. Conduit facades with the black wool texture on them. So it's just a basic thing. And what I do is I set up a floor that's 2 blocks high from the ground. This basically allows me to place energy conduits in the floor and what other conduits that I might need to set up my machines and feed them the resources that they need. So I'm just gonna fill out the floor here. All right, so now we have a floor, and if we bring out our wrench, we can see all of our conduits inside of it. If you don't know how Ender.io works and all of this looks very strange to you and you've never seen this before, I might suggest looking up some tutorials on Ender.io, because I'm not going to really cover how Ender.io works at a basic level in this tutorial, so you'll probably be lost, because this does involve some pretty advanced Ender.io stuff. But you should be able to follow along even if you don't know how Ender.io works to a super advanced degree. So after we've placed our conduits here, I know the layout that I need for this to work. So I'm actually going to place this kind of little cross pattern here, going all the way to the edges and then one out in the other direction. And I'm going to switch to my next setup here. So with Applied Energistics, in order to make processors, we need to use an inscriber or many inscribers. So the way that I've done this that is most efficient is I've set up a little pattern of inscribers here, 3 tall. So there's 6 inscribers here, and then I put 2 diamond chests in the middle, and this is to set up our automated crafting of our presses. And then on the other side of the machine, the compact machine block, or box, I guess, I place 3 more inscribers, but it's very important that you place them facing up. So the way to do this would be to jump and then place it, and then hold shift and jump and place 2 more. This makes sure that they're facing upward. And the reason for this is because these slots here are determined by what side of the block you insert things on. So if I wanted to put something in this top slot here, because I placed it this way, I would have to insert from this side. Whoops. I would have to insert from this top side here of the block. And likewise for the bottom, I have to insert from the bottom. And then for the center slot, I can insert from any of the side slots, which in this case would be this slot, the top, or here. Makes a little bit more sense when it's like this. And then you can only extract from the side slots. So the sides that the facing orientation would be the word I'm looking for. The orientation of this block does matter. So I'm using Ender IO item conduits, and it'll make sense in a little bit, but for now, just follow along with me in the pattern that I'm placing them. So I'm going to place on these three sides of our vertical stack, and I'm going to connect them up here. And then I'm going to run that through the floor just for neatness. And I'm going to run it up to these chests and place on these sides here. And then I'm also going to connect these on the floor to our little network here. And then after that, I'm going to run from the top of the top chest here and run that to the top port in our compact machine. And before I forget, you need to make sure that you set your bottom port to auto and your top port as well to auto on your compact machine. And then I'm also going to add some item conduits here. And then if I leave that, I'm going to drop these here. And because we want to also be able to charge our Certus quartz, I've set up, we need an energy acceptor here from Applied Energistics and a charger. And just because it's slow and you can only do one at a time, I'm putting two in here. We also need to make sure that we run power to all of these machines. So we just need to power them as such. And I like to keep my power conduits separate from my item conduits when I need to work with some of the advanced functions, just because it keeps it cleaner. It's a little easier to manage. So this should be your basic configuration. And I'm going to go through here and clean up some of these connections that we don't want. And if I break this here, I can disconnect my item conduits from the bottom of all these machines. So your connection should look somewhat more or less like this. Oh, and we also don't want any connections here. So that's what your stuff should look like. The next thing we need to do is set up our filters so that all of the things that we're going to be putting in the chest outside of our machine block will be placed in the correct chests and be routed to the right machines at the right time. So to do that, we use filters. You guessed it. But the first thing we need to do is set up our input and output directions for all of these connected areas. And this is where this little machine one block wonder gets a little bit tedious, because we need to set up the input and output directions as well as the channels for all of these connections. So the way I normally set up my inscribers is to have the top three presses do the silicone press and the bottom three to create the three circuits. So we know that these top two need silicone. So what we're going to do is change all of these to in and out. For starters, all of our ports on our inscribers need to be set to in and out. And then same here for the top of this chest. And the back of this chest needs to only be out, but this bottom chest also needs to be in and out. And then we need the front facing ports here on our vertical stack of inscribers to be in and out, while all of the side ports need to be only in. And then our top our I guess our input and output for the machine itself. If I can find there we go. Needs to be in and out. And then for our chargers, we need to do in and out as well. So that should cover it. And if I forgot something, I'll end up correcting it as we go. So that should do it for all of our channels here, or our directions. So the next thing we need to do, now that we have all of our input and output directions set on all of our machines, is set up our filters. So we know that our top 3 inscribers are going to be making silicone presses. So that means that we need only silicone to be input into these, and then we'll output the silicone press. But to do that, we need to make sure that all of our raw materials that are being input from outside of our machine block are being placed in the correct chest, in our case, this one. So what we're going to do is on our top port here, we're going to go to, we're going to leave this set to in and out, but we're going to go to our our extract mode, and make sure that we have without redstone signal. And we're going to set this to the brown channel. And then we're going to, on our import, on all of these intermediary inscribers, we're going to set the import channel to brown. And that should do it. So now what we need to do is set up our filters. So, like I said, the top 3 here are only going to be making silicone presses. So what we need to do is set an insert filter of only silicone. And it's as simple as that. You just insert a basic item filter into the interface here on the insert tab, and then put in the item that we want to be filtered. And then I'm going to do this for all 3 of these. And now we want our engineering press, which is diamond. So we need to import diamond to get engineering circuits. So same as before, we'll just input our filter, our basic item filter, and then put a diamond in the filter slot. And then here we have our logic presses, and logic circuits are gold. So we will, once again, basic item filter, put a gold ingot in there, because that's what we want to be imported. And then last but not least, we have calculation processors, which use pure Certus quartz crystal to be crafted. So we'll set up our filter for only pure Certus quartz. So once our inscribers have made our silicone presses and our circuits, we need them to be exported, but we want to export them to the bottom chest just for the sake of organization. So what we're going to do is set up a filter on our extract, make sure we disable our redstone signal, and we're going to export to the blue channel. And we're going to do this on all of these. And we don't need to set up a filter, we just need to make sure that it's only exporting to the blue channel. Now that all of these are exporting to the blue channel, when they're done creating their circuits and their presses, they'll export to the blue channel, but we don't have a place for it to go yet. So we're going to check this bottom chest and set the insert channel to blue. We don't need to set a filter here because only things that are being exported on blue channels can be inserted into this chest, which is only the things that we want to be in there. So now that we have all of our intermediate inscribers set up, we need to export all of our intermediate materials, our logic circuits and our silicone presses, to our final inscribers. And to do this, we're going to set our extract to active without a redstone signal, and we're going to export to the purple channel. And then you might be noticing a pattern here. We need to set all of our insert channels to purple on our final inscribers so that we're only receiving things that are being exported on the purple channel. there we go. Now only things exported from the bottom chest on the purple channel will be inserted into this. Now we need to set up our filters. So because of the way we place this, the bottom of our inscriber is actually here on the right side. So on the bottom of the inscribers, on all 3 of them, we want to filter for it to receive printed silicone here. So we're just going to go through and do that. On the middle of all 3 of our inscribers, we want it to receive only redstone. So once again, let's go through the motions. And then on the top here is where it varies. You can do this one of 2 ways. If you want all 3 of your inscribers to be able to make all 3 presses, you could just do this. And this would insert the silicone in the bottom, the redstone in the middle, and then whatever calculation, engineering, or logic circuits are available in the top, and create our processor. But I'm not going to do that because it can create some bottlenecks if you put in a lot of materials at once. I'm just going to do one at a time. So in the bottom here, I'm going to use our calculation circuit. In the middle one, I'm going to put in our engineering circuit. And in the top one, I'm going to put in our logic circuit, if I can get it in there. So that actually concludes the crafting section here. So all of the circuits will be crafted, but they don't have anywhere to go. So on our side ports here on the front, we need to go to our extract settings, turn off the redstone signal requirement, and then we're going to extract to the cyan channel. Oops. And make sure you're turning off your redstone signal requirement here for extraction on everything, because there's no reason to ever have that set in this particular setup. So now they're being extracted. Our completed processors are being extracted on the cyan channel, but they don't have anywhere to go. So we're going to set this insert channel to cyan. So now all of our completed materials are going to be inserted on the cyan channel. So that should conclude, unless I've forgotten something, which I probably have, the crafting of our processors. The next thing that we want to do is, because we want to also be charging Certus quartz in here, let's set these 2 things up. And it's done in pretty much exactly the same way. So our raw materials, as we remember, are getting exported from our top chest on the brown channel. So we're just going to set these 2 to the brown channel. And then we want to set up a filter for them to only receive Certus quartz. I'm just going to do these 2 simultaneously here. And then we want them to export. Because this is our completed material, we're actually just going to export directly to the cyan channel here. Make sure that we're setting our export to not require a redstone signal. And then, same as before, we're just going to set a filter to only extract charged Certus, because I believe, I probably should have tested this before I recorded, but I didn't. I believe that it will try and extract the uncharged Certus quartz if you don't set a filter here. So we want to make sure that we're only whitelisting our charged Certus quartz crystal for the export. And once again, that's extracted to the cyan channel, so it will be extracted out of the machine room. So that should conclude everything that we need to do in here. So now if we leave, actually, just one more thing that we need to do that I forgot. On our, actually 2 things. On our top raw materials chest, because we're putting in redstone up here and all of our raw materials land here from outside, we need to also make sure that we are exporting redstone from the chest on the purple channel. So if I can find the spot, we want to extract only without a redstone signal on the purple channel, and we're going to filter redstone. And that will extract to these inscribers here and place the redstone in the center slot. And then the last thing we should need to do in here is set up a filter for insertion, or a filter for extraction. But this time we're going to set up a blacklist. So what we want to do here is set up to extract without a redstone signal. This will extract all of the things being imported from outside of this machine block. We want to set up a blacklist of all of our finished products. That way when our machines export the finished product, they don't get pulled back in, and this will leave them in the chest. And then we're also going to set up, let's see, a accelerator. Oops, that's for Applied Energistics. We need to get a item conduit speed upgrade. Put a few of those in there. It just makes things run a little smoother. So that should be everything that we need to do inside. So now we're going to exit our machine block here. And now that we're outside, we need to set up the filters on this item conduit here. So same as before, we just right click, set this to in and out, set that to in and out, and the channels outside don't really matter. But we want to set up our extraction to have a filter of only our completed products, because we only want to extract completed products from this machine frame. And then we're going to set this to be a whitelist and make sure we're active without a signal. And then on our insertion here, our extraction from here, we're going to set up a blacklist for our completed products. That way we're never pulling our completed products out of this chest, but we're pulling everything else. And once again, active without a signal on. So now, if I've done this correctly, I should be able to simply import all of my raw materials. And if I grab another stack of, let's see, acceleration stuff here, and place it on the extraction from the chest, should extract all of this stuff much quicker. And then if we wait a little bit, hopefully, okay, let's see what I've forgotten. So we're importing from here, and all of our raw materials are appearing in this chest, but they are not being exported because this is not connected. Herpaderp. Now it should work. So now if we check out our presses, our inscribers, you can see that they're making these materials, and those materials are being placed into this chest, and then immediately extracted and placed inside of our inscribers, which then create the processors and they get exported out. And then you can also see that our Certus quartz is being placed into our charger and then exported once charged. So if we leave our machine here, you can see that all of our raw materials have been sucked up, and we're now receiving our completed processors and charged Certus quartz. So I hope you guys found this tutorial useful, if a little bit long. If you have any questions, leave me a comment below, and I'll see you next time.